Every woman Robert Kennedy had an affair with, his wife knew all along. Robert F. Kennedy, often affectionately called Bobby, was one of the most admired and charismatic political figures in American history. Born on November 20, 1925, into the prominent Kennedy family, he was the seventh of 9 children of Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. and Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. His life was marked by a deep commitment to public service, justice, and the fight for equality, but it was tragically cut short when he was assassinated on June 6, 1968, at the age of 42. Robert Kennedy grew up in a family defined by wealth, influence, and ambition. His father, Joseph Kennedy Sr., was a powerful businessman and diplomat, and his mother, Rose, was deeply devoted to her children's success, instilling in them a sense of public duty. Despite his family's privilege, Robert's childhood was not without challenges. As the seventh child in a highly competitive family, Robert often felt overshadowed by his elder brothers, particularly John F. Kennedy. However, these early feelings of inadequacy fueled his later drive to prove himself through public service. Kennedy attended prestigious schools, including Harvard University, where his studies were interrupted by his service in the U.S. Navy during World War II. After the war, he returned to Harvard, graduating in 1948. He then went on to study law at the University of Virginia, graduating in 1951. These formative years at elite institutions shaped his intellectual and moral outlook, grounding him in a strong sense of justice and the belief in using the law to promote societal change. Robert Kennedy's political career began in earnest when he worked as a campaign manager for his brother John F. Kennedy's successful 1952 Senate bid. He quickly developed a reputation as a tough, no-nonsense political operator. His first major public role came when he served as chief counsel for the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in 1953. In this position, Kennedy took on corrupt labor unions and organized crime, making a name for himself as a determined and fearless fighter against injustice. In 1960, Robert played a pivotal role in managing John F. Kennedy's presidential campaign. After John F. Kennedy's election, Robert was appointed Attorney General, becoming one of his brother's closest and most trusted advisors. In this role, he was instrumental in key decisions during some of the most challenging times of the Kennedy administration, including the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Civil Rights Movement. Perhaps Kennedy's most enduring legacy as Attorney General was his unwavering commitment to civil rights. He was deeply moved by the struggles of African Americans in the South, and he worked tirelessly to enforce desegregation laws and protect civil rights activists. His support of Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders marked a turning point in the federal government's involvement in the movement. Kennedy's efforts, including his push for the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964, cemented his place as a champion of equality and justice. Robert Kennedy, known as Bobby to those closest to him, was an emblematic figure in American politics during the 1960s. As a member of the influential Kennedy family, he was a man of immense charisma, intellect, and public service dedication. However, like many prominent figures of the time, he was also entangled in the complexities of personal indiscretions, notably his numerous extramarital affairs. While his public image was largely defined by his advocacy for civil rights, justice reform, and anti-poverty programs, behind the scenes, Bobby Kennedy's personal life was far more tumultuous. His marriage to Ethel Skakel Kennedy was put to the test by a series of affairs with multiple women, affairs that his wife was reportedly well aware of. Bobby Kennedy's magnetic personality drew people to him in droves, and this was not limited to his political or professional sphere. He exuded a natural charm that made him highly attractive to women. As a man in a position of power, admired for his passionate public speeches and commitment to causes like civil rights, his charm wasn't only intellectual, it was physical. Kennedy's good looks, coupled with the aura of the Kennedy dynasty, made him a figure that women found difficult to resist. This charisma was a hallmark of the Kennedy brothers, and like his older brother, John F. Kennedy, Bobby was often surrounded by women, some of whom became more than just admirers. One of the most publicized alleged affairs of Robert Kennedy was with Marilyn Monroe. The famous actress, already romantically linked to President John F. Kennedy, was said to have had an affair with Bobby as well. Rumors swirled around Monroe's relationships with both Kennedy brothers, suggesting that Bobby became involved with her after his brother distanced himself. Monroe, who was battling personal demons in a fragile emotional state, found comfort in the company of Bobby. Though the affair has never been definitively confirmed, many sources claim that the two had a brief but intense relationship. Some even speculate that Monroe's tragic and mysterious death in 1962 might have been indirectly related to her involvement with the Kennedys, particularly Bobby. His name has been implicated in conspiracy theories regarding her death, though no concrete evidence has ever emerged to support these claims. Ethel Skakel Kennedy, Robert's wife, was often portrayed as the steadfast matriarch of their large family, raising their 11 children amidst the political whirlwind that surrounded the Kennedy name. Despite her public role as a devoted wife, it is widely believed that Ethel was aware of Bobby's extramarital affairs. In an era when political wives were expected to maintain a public facade of loyalty and discretion, Ethel embodied this role to perfection. Friends and close confidants of the Kennedys have indicated that she knew of his indiscretions but chose to remain silent, focusing on their family and political ambitions. Ethel, who came from a wealthy and prominent family herself, likely understood the stakes of her husband's career and the importance of maintaining a united front. Her decision to stay with him, despite his infidelities, was perhaps influenced by her Catholic upbringing, which emphasized the sanctity and permanence of marriage. The Kennedy family's lifestyle, particularly during their peak political years, was one of constant public scrutiny and intense pressure. Bobby and Ethel lived in the shadow of John F. Kennedy's presidency, which was characterized by glamorous parties, political strategy sessions, and endless social engagements. These gatherings often involved Hollywood celebrities, powerful political figures, and prominent socialites. It was in this environment that Bobby Kennedy, like his brother John, found himself in the company of women who admired him for his political stature and charisma. The Kennedy men were known for their flirtatious behavior and their tendency to engage in affairs, which were often quietly overlooked by those around them. It was an open secret in political circles that Bobby, despite his public image as a family man, was involved with several women. Apart from Marilyn Monroe, Bobby Kennedy was rumored to have had affairs with a number of other women. These included high-profile figures from the worlds of politics, media, and Hollywood. Among those frequently mentioned was socialite Amanda Burden, who later became a prominent figure in New York City planning. Burden was reportedly enamored with Bobby, and their close relationship raised eyebrows in political circles. Journalist Edie Locke, who had covered Kennedy's campaigns, also allegedly had a relationship with him. Though these relationships were often conducted in secret, the rumors eventually became impossible to ignore. Bobby's ability to compartmentalize his personal and professional life allowed him to maintain these affairs while continuing his work in the public eye. Bobby Kennedy's extramarital affairs undoubtedly complicated his legacy. Though he is remembered for his significant contributions to civil rights, anti-poverty efforts, and justice reform, his personal indiscretions are an undeniable part of his history. Some historians argue that Kennedy's affairs mirrored those of many powerful men of his time, particularly in the political realm, where such behavior was often overlooked or excused. Others contend that his infidelities revealed a duality in his character, a man deeply committed to justice and equality, yet unable to adhere to the moral standards he publicly espoused. In the wake of his assassination in 1968, these affairs have largely been overshadowed by his tragic death and the sense of what might have been had he lived to fulfill his political ambitions. Ethel Kennedy's decision to remain with Bobby throughout his numerous affairs speaks to her resilience and determination to preserve their family unit. Her stoic public demeanor, even in the face of personal betrayal, earned her a great deal of sympathy and respect. Many saw her as a pillar of strength, particularly in the aftermath of Bobby's assassination, when she was left to raise their children alone. Ethel's ability to endure the pain of her husband's infidelities while maintaining her role as a supportive political spouse was a testament to her commitment to the Kennedy legacy. In the years following Bobby's death, she has remained a symbol of the strength and grace often associated with the Kennedy women, much like her sister-in-law, Jacqueline Kennedy. After the tragic assassination of his brother in 1963, Robert Kennedy was devastated, but his sense of duty drove him to continue his public service. In 1964, he was elected to the U.S. Senate from New York. As a senator, Kennedy expanded his focus beyond civil rights to issues of poverty, inequality, and social justice. He traveled extensively, visiting impoverished communities in the United States and abroad, including Appalachia, the Mississippi Delta, and South Africa. His experiences deepened his empathy for marginalized people and reinforced his belief in the need for government intervention to address systemic inequities. In 1968, amid the turmoil of the Vietnam War and widespread social unrest, Kennedy announced his candidacy for president. His campaign was built on a platform of peace, racial harmony, and economic justice. Kennedy's vision for America was one of hope, unity, and compassion, in stark contrast to the divisions that plagued the nation at the time. His speeches resonated with millions of Americans who were tired of the war in Vietnam and the growing gap between the rich and poor. Tragically, Robert Kennedy's life and career were cut short when he was assassinated on June 5, 1968, just moments after delivering a victory speech following his win in the California Democratic primary. He was shot by Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian with grievances over Kennedy's support for Israel. Kennedy died the next day, leaving the nation in shock and mourning, yet another tragic loss from the Kennedy family. Robert F. Kennedy's death marked the end of an era, but his legacy continues to live on. He is remembered not only for his accomplishments but for the ideals he stood for: justice, equality, and compassion for the marginalized. His vision of a better, more inclusive America remains an enduring inspiration to those who fight for social justice. Kennedy's words, "Some men see things as they are, and say why. I dream of things that never were, and say why not," encapsulate his forward-looking philosophy, which still resonates today.